Today is September 9th, and I'm getting ready to record myself practicing for my final defense, which is tomorrow, September the 10th at 1 p.m. I don't want to keep saying that I'm nervous because I pray that God would take all the nervousness and anxiousness away, because at the end of the day, I did the research. I know that I can present. I am a great presenter. I know that I can get my point across. I think my mind is just playing tricks on me because you know the information, but just knowing that the last 4 years, y'all, 4 years, this is what I worked to accomplish. And the time has come. I know that I've done the research. I know that I've written the paper. I know that I've prepared the slide, but tomorrow, the 10th, is the day. And so for all the 4 years that I have worked to do this, it comes up that day. And so I think that's why I have this feeling of like anxiousness, because it's not because I think that I don't know what I'm talking about or I don't know the research. And so anyway, I'm going to record myself just practicing. One, because I think I need to listen back to myself, because yesterday when I was practicing, I kept saying a lot. And I know that's just a filler word and you're trying to think of what you're getting ready to say. And for some of us, like me, it's a habit because I do it in everyday talking. But when I am presenting a professional presentation or a scholarly presentation, it's not what I want to continuously hear or other people to hear. So I need to practice to be able to perfect. I don't believe in over practicing though. I'm not one of those people that practice, because when it comes to something like this, because I feel like sometimes over practicing, you lose the authenticity of your presentation. And for me, whether I'm in a professional environment or whether I'm in an academic environment, I still want to be myself. I know that a lot of people code switch. I know that that's very much a thing. For me, yes, I am professional, but I still want to remain myself. And I know that for me, again, practicing over and over and over again, you start to change your voice and you just lose your authenticity of what you're trying to say. And that's just not what I want to do. I also think that when you practice, people know that you're speaking verbatim off of something. And so here we are. I'm not going to post the entire practice round, obviously, because it's going to take me like 40 minutes to get through this and nobody's listening to a 40-minute video, but I will make sure that I include like snippets. Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining my final defense today. Today, I will be taking the time to defend my dissertation on the topic, A Narrative Inquiry, the study of Black women who ascended to the role of senior executive service in the federal government. I will orally defend my research, providing an overview, the gap, significance, research question, methodology, and conceptual framework. I will then go into detail on my research, the results, the themes, how I analyze the data, the interpretation of the findings, recommendations, limitations, and implications. All right.
Great. And the clock will start when you start.
I'm ready. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining my final defense. So Black women are often a part of stories they do not tell, meaning people often tell their stories for them. This study, though, it explored the first person stories of Black women who ascended to the role of SES in the federal government despite being in underrepresented positions. So in this study, those Black women will tell their stories for themselves. 7 Black women were interviewed, all over the age of 18. They were current or previous SES members, one of them being retired. For this study, I used the conceptual framework. I used intersectionality framework to address race and gender, so Black women, accompanied by social cognitive career theory and self-efficacy theory to address why Black women make their career choices. And so the problem is, when researching Black women in the federal government, there are limited studies that provide narrative inquiries, again, those first person stories, on the role that self-efficacy plays in the trajectory of becoming an SES member. The findings were significant to this study and to Black women considering leadership roles in the federal government because of the level of transparency that was shared in those narratives and because of the consistency between the participants' responses. And that concludes my final defense.
Doesn't quite conclude your final defense.
Until you ask me questions.
Good try there, though. Okay. Let me first start with Dr. Denton.
Okay.
If you could go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. Firstly, Brittany, I would like to congratulate you on making it to this point in your program. So this is super exciting, and I know that you're probably super nervous, but congratulations on getting to this point. This is a major milestone. So I just had a few questions I wanted to ask you. Now, I know that you kind of touched on this just a little bit, but I know that one of your things that you wanted to speak about in your study was the significance, and you spoke about changing the narrative. So in your opinion, as a Black woman yourself, why was it important to get the narratives of Black women regarding your study and them achieving SES? Why was that important to you?
It was important to me because I felt like it's not talked about enough. I think that sometimes it's great to highlight people's achievements. And while we all know that Black women are underrepresented in leadership, I felt like we should talk about the successes. We don't always have to talk about why we're still behind. There are several Black women who have made it. Let's talk about them.
Congratulations, Brittany, on getting this far. I know you put a lot of time and effort into getting here. I just had a couple of questions for you. One is I was wondering, since you mentioned that you had family, your mom had been in the government, and your own experiences, I was wondering what steps you took to try to separate your feelings about, your perceptions about what you might see or glean from this study, and how you separated that from the actual content that you were able to elicit from your participants. What did you do to ensure that the information that you were gathering was clear and not you weren't influencing the outcome of your research?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question because that's actually why it took me so long to do my study. Because when something is kind of close to you, you take it personal. And so there were times where I had to step away from the study because even just reading the literature, I was just like, what in the world? So I had to kind of back away. I also had to do a lot of journaling. And that's also why I incorporated member checking, because I wanted to alleviate any bias. I wanted the women to see their own stories and know that I did not add anything. I did not take anything away. These are your accounts. And so even when I was doing my research questions, I remember the first set of research questions, you all as my committee was like, those are a little bit leading. And so I had to go back and I had to do research questions. And so outside of having the participants review the work and journaling, just my committee being able to kind of help me see like, hey, these questions might be a little leading. Let's try to do, this to kind of get back on track.
The committee feels that you did a wonderful job. We really appreciated the fact that you stuck to your research in terms of showing the alignment from the beginning and pulling it all the way through for your conceptual framework, for your theories, for those things, that you understood what you were doing with the methodology and you were able to bring their voices into the discussion, which is so key in narrative analysis to really understand their stories. And that your process of your data coding and analysis was sound. So we think you hit all of the marks, and you were clearly very comfortable and very familiar with your data as you kind of went through and led the presentation. So it almost seemed too easy, don't you think?
It was not. It only took us 4 years.
So congratulations, Dr. Yates.
Thank you.
It is my pleasure to be one of the first to invite you to the club.